Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. I'm your host, Troy. Glad to be back. Got some updates, and some are new, some are the same, but we'll dive into those real quick. First thing, as of recording this bumper, tomorrow morning we are getting on the road, and we are heading out of state to purchase some piglets. And you may be wondering, wait a minute, Troy, shouldn't you be having piglets on your farm right now? And the answer to that is yes, we should be, but we don't. We had a bad farrowing, and that's going to be another story. I'm not ready to get into that just yet because I'm still exploring what just went on there. So we are actually going to go buy some pigs. So that's always fun, right? You know, you have breed stock hanging around, eating for free. You'd expect them to produce piglets, but no dice. But like I said, well, that'll be probably our next podcast. I'll give you an update, the details of that and what we were able to do and what we've discovered possibly as the issue there. Another update, as you guys are aware, mentioned this last time, and a lot of you took advantage of it, but I want to continue to promote our business directory on the Pastured Pig website. It is free for you to go in and put your farm information. And if you put your information on and you think, well, maybe I should spend a little more time on that, or maybe there's additional updates I want to do, you have the ability to go back and log in and make edits to yours. So it's not a one and done. So if you get new pictures, like right now, this time of year, you want a nice, pretty picture of your farm. If you live where I live, it's mud season. So there really aren't too many things that are pretty. So as you get into the spring and everything's in bloom and you've got pigs frolicking on flower fields, then feel free to come back and update your images or anything else you want to update there. Also on the website, of course, is our pig gestation calculator. Drop that in there, so there's an opportunity to use that. Also want to continue to extend the invitation for any guest blog writers. So again, just reach out to me, troy@redtoolhouse.com, if you would like to tell a story. If you'd like to write about something in particular, we could even joint write something if you wanted to, or you can take off and run with something. But there are some parameters that we have to have in place to protect ourselves. So just email me and we can get a discussion going there. All right, well, let's get into our conversation. Ooh, that may be a little hot there. Today, we are talking with Kyle Perreault, and he's with a farm called The Ranch up in New England. And I really like talking with Kyle. He's actually got a processing facility on his farm, and he's going to share the details of that. So let's jump right into that conversation. On this episode, we are headed north. We're going up into the great area of New England. We're going all the way up to New Hampshire, to Effingham, New Hampshire. And we're talking with Kyle Perreault of The Ranch is the name of his farm, but he also has an on-farm processing facility called The Body Shop. Welcome, Kyle.
How's it going, Troy?
Doing good. Did I get the last name right? Was that correct? Perreault?
Yes.
Perreault, yeah. All right.
Yep, that was good.
Yeah, you even told me that before I started recording and still thought I was going to mess that up. So, all right. So, Kyle, tell me about, first of all, how are things up in New Hampshire? They cooling down a little bit yet?
They are not. It was in the 70s at the beginning of this week. It's actually going to be like 65 tomorrow.
Wow.
It is absolutely nuts.
Yeah, no doubt. That's kind of warm for this late for you guys.
Yeah, but it's normal in New Hampshire. Wake up's at 24 degrees and by noon it's 70.
Right.
So
yeah, it is what it is, man. You just got to roll with it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about The Ranch. Give me that 40,000 foot elevation view of what you got going on up there.
So The Ranch we do primarily beef and pork. We are a 14 acre. It was a horse farm at one point. So we have a fairly decent size house with the barn attached with a handful of stalls. And when we bought the property, we really didn't have it. Basically, just had the barn, and the fields hadn't been taken care of. The field is so basically the 14 acres is the house lot and basically open hay fields, which has been amazing because it's been kind of like a blank canvas.
Yeah.
Um, but since we started putting in infrastructure, we've probably fenced in, I'd say, close to 6 acres or so, 6 or 7,
Yeah.
between the pigs and the cows. So, and then we have 2 outbuildings on the property. One is original to the property. It has like an old forge and everything in there. That's mostly my storage area. And then we also have a 70 by 30 detached garage with its own driveway that we've taken half of it and turned it into a custom processing facility.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Now, I got to back up and ask you. You said something about the barn. You said the barn is attached to the house, like a traditional New England style?
Yes, it is.
That's so cool. Yeah, I was visiting a friend up in Peacham, Vermont, and that's the way his was originally, a big old huge dairy barn. But his insurance company made him tear down the connection between the two because of the, I guess, the disrepair that the barn was in. That to have a policy on the house or to have the coverage that he wanted, he had to disconnect those in case there was a fire, I guess, in the dairy barn. But
no, I get it. Yeah, ours is. They say on the deed it's from the house's 1940s.
Yeah.
But if you go under the barn, it's poles it's like basically trees that are just flattened on top.
Right.
That have got to be 36 inches around. It's crazy.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
So I got to say, first of all, that you don't sound. Is New Hampshire your hometown area? You don't sound like you're from New Hampshire.
No, I am from New Hampshire. Well, technically, I was born in Rhode Island, but I moved back up here at like 6 months old.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised, or I was raised in Meredith, New Hampshire, which, if anyone knows where Lake Winnipesaukee is,
yeah,
that's essentially the town of Meredith. And I pretty much bounced from northern New Hampshire to southern New Hampshire to now we're right smack dab on as basically as east as you can go. You can see Maine from my bedroom window.
No kidding.
So,
yeah. All right. Yeah. I don't pick up on the accent, but when you say Hampshire, I do pick up a little bit of it there. So
yeah, a little bit.
That's pretty cool. All right, yeah, I absolutely love New England. We really enjoyed it. We were up there 2 years ago and just had a blast. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. All right, so
it's a fun spot.
Yeah, so let's talk about. So in 2018, you bought this 14 acres, and so I know from pre-screening that you were involved in the processing industry. You've been involved in that for over 12 years. But what was the genesis of that? So, you know, you're kind of doing your day job gig. You're working your processing thing, and I don't know if your wife is employed or whatever. But what at 2018 was the impetus to say to purchase this farm and kind of go in this direction?
Well, so I actually didn't get into professional whole animal processing until right around 2018. I had always been in the meat industry. I started as a clerk at a grocery store and then got an apprenticeship out of that. I apprenticed for 2 years at a small shop. And then from there ended up working in like some quote unquote gourmet steak, like marinated steak houses and stuff like that, where people can come in and get marinated steak tips. But I ended up managing a bunch of those. But the entire time I knew at some point I wanted to get into whole animal butchery. And that's pretty much where it all started, with starting out with rabbits and chickens and turkeys and ducks. And because at the time there wasn't a lot of classes and schools available to me up here. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of learned with what I raised, like the process on how to do that. I can't tell you how many free deer I cut up just to get that experience and learn. And in 2018, we actually looked at this property in 2017, and my wife, who had lived in the southern part of the state her whole life, wasn't too sure about moving this far north and out here. And we looked at a bunch of other places, and they ended up, about a year later, we looked back at this place and they dropped the price by a lot. And we're like, cool, we're going to take it now. So
Yeah.
But when we bought the property, we went into it knowing that we were going to build a processing facility, and we knew we were going to raise livestock of some kind.
Yeah.
We weren't exactly sure what yet.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So I mean, obviously, the great opportunity to buy that land in 2018. You said that they actually dropped the price. Who would have thought that 2 years later, when COVID hit, then the property values would be going through the roof. And so it sounds like you landed on that just in time.
Their realtor blatantly told us they dropped the price because of the location, that nobody wanted to live out here. And I was like, we do.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So tell me about, so now that you got the farm 2018, and you said you knew you wanted to put a processing facility on there. So kind of which came first in this situation? Is it I know you had the cows, you added the pigs, and I think you said you also take care of some horses that are maybe rescue type situations. But did you put the processing facility in thinking, okay, I'm going to process custom processing for other people, and oh, by the way, we're going to raise some animals? Or was it, hey, we're going to raise some animals and we're going to process everything here, so we're going to be turnkey? What was kind of the idea or the goal with that originally?
The shop was first. I'm trying to think about it now. The shop was first, at a very small scale. We got a lot of equipment at a very cheap price because of people I had met along the way and people I had worked with. And I always say it's not about who you know, it's how you know them. So we gathered a bunch of that, and then just kind of little bit at a time built the shop up to the point of I was working full time at a USDA slaughterhouse, and on the side I would take odd jobs, random cows and pigs, and deer season I would be out straight doing that. And it was mostly just kind of a side hustle thing, because I know how to do this, why not do it for ourselves, with knowing also that at some point we'll be raising cows, we'll be raising pigs, and I'll be able to process here. So it was kind of one of those situations where it was like everything just kind of fell in to working.
Yeah.
Which is nice when that happens.
Yeah, no doubt. So when you're doing the side hustle type of thing, was that more of a mobile situation? Were you going to people and just saying, hey, I'm going to bring my stuff to you, we'll process your deer right here, or the cow or the pig or whatever you run into? Or was it still at that point bringing it back to your farm?
Everything was brought back to the farm. Still is, essentially. I don't do much mobile stuff, except for middle of winter. I'll venture out and do a little more. We don't have a refrigerated truck yet, so it's one of those things. I don't love traveling with other people's meat in the bed of my truck,
right.
Naturally. So we have a small corral here that we do. The majority of my customers bring everything here. But yeah, at the time it was, hey, my boss would be like, hey, this person's a friend and they need help. Like, they just need this done. So yeah, I would do like a cow once or twice a month, a random pig here and there. I think at that point I was still doing like, I need help cutting up this turkey. All right, I'll do it. Like, kind of one of those situations. And thank God we've moved away from that.
I bet. Yeah. Yeah, I bet poultry is probably at the bottom of the list, I would think, on
It is absolutely at the bottom of my list. I probably have about 6 people a month go, so when are you going to start doing birds? I'm like, never.
Exactly. Things got to get really rough before we go back to that.
Things got to get real rough before I start doing that. Yeah, in all honesty, I have no problem doing them. They're fine. It is what it is. I honestly don't feel right charging what I'd have to charge,
right, exactly,
to process birds.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, I think it's just because of how I learned how to do all this, where in my head I just go, you can do this. Like, you can absolutely do this. We're at a day and age where you are 30 seconds away from finding 17 videos on how to do this.
Yeah.
And when it's something as small as a chicken, where that's like the branching off point for 90% of people
right.
of getting into this, of farming, you're getting into this to sustain yourself and raise your own meat and have it be special and be a part of what you're doing. When it's something like that, I almost feel like it should be something where it's like, unless you're selling like mass quantities of poultry, that should be something. It's like, you can do it. I believe in you. Right. I'll be here with any questions you have.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's a good point too. When you think about poultry, like we process a couple hundred birds a year on our farm, and personal consumption and for resale. But looking at that and saying, well, okay, you start with the first bird, and for us, as when we start with our first bird in the beginning of the season, it's like, okay, got to remember how I did this last year. And by the time you get to the fifth or sixth bird, then you know, things are starting to click. And by the time you're on the 100th bird, then you're like, yeah, I can do this with my eyes closed. And that happens all over the course of a weekend. Whereas if it's I've only processed one pig, and that was a 300-pound, almost 400-pound boar this winter, and realized I'd really rather never do that again because it's just so different and so much work. And then you just realize you don't know what you don't know until you get to that point. It's like, I don't even know how to begin to break this down in this spot. So yeah,
I watched the YouTube video. You did a pretty good job.
Oh,
I was impressed.
Oh, I destroyed those hams because I wanted to cut them for grind. I just destroyed them. I was like, there's obviously muscle groups I'm supposed to be cutting against and long, and it's like, no, that was a tragedy. That was a train wreck with a knife, is what it was.
It's tough. It is tough. It's one of those things, if you are not used to doing it all the time, that it is such a learning curve.
Yeah.
That once you get it, you got it. But to get there, it's a tough journey.
Yeah, I'm sure.
am so glad I don't have pictures of my first couple of deer I cut up. I'm so glad.
Yeah. Yep, that's right, man. So I want to do this, and because I'm going to kind of maybe even go a full circle here, because I want to come back to this, to a little bit more of your philosophy, and then I want to get into some of the startup discussions with your processing. But first, let's come back around. So we said that the processing, on-farm processing, was kind of your first focus, that, hey, we got this farm, we got this property, I want to put a processing facility in here. And at that point, it was like, okay, I'm going to put processing here. Was it solely going to just be customers, animals that you were bringing in, and you maybe had some of your own farm animals here that were more pets? Or did you say, okay, get this established, that's going to generate some revenue so I can get some cattle, get some infrastructure, bring some pigs in? How did that kind of unfold for you?
Actually, so I knew at some point we would be getting livestock. I just didn't really know when. And then it was kind of forced, probably isn't the right way to put it. I have a buddy down the road who was a customer at first. I did a cow for him. And he had two cows that were calving out, and his setup was not suitable. It was the middle of February, and he didn't have a spot. I had two open stalls, and I was like, bring them over. Like, I have the space, and at this point, it was just stalls. I had no corrals, no fencing, no nothing. And then I was here. I went out and checking on him, and all of a sudden feeder's sticking out. So I give him a call, and I was there for the whole process. And I think at this point, our daughter was under 1. She was a baby. And I, at that moment, was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a part of our lives forever. Like, I'm doing everything. And around that time, I had also decided to go sober. So I had stopped drinking. And I was like, well, I'm going to take all of this addictive energy and put it straight into farming. And my favorite quote my wife has ever said was, "You were a cheaper alcoholic." So, but basically at that point, it was off to the races. I built the corral very shortly after that, built our winter pasture, which is about 1.5 acres right after that. And then it just started. Like, we were off. I was off to the races at that point. We had the old horse pasture hadn't been taken care of in years. So we had a bunch of birch and aspen popping up in there. So I just basically went through with the tractor and leveled everything and really just tore everything up and put up our first major pasture, which was interesting and a learning experience for sure. And yeah, so basically from that point on, we just kind of were adding and adding and adding, and pigs are our newest venture this year. And it's looking like we're going to go all in on them next year. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Very cool. Very cool. So is it kind of that thing where the processing, as far as farm revenue goes, the processing probably is the key generator of revenue, and you're just reinvesting that into expanded livestock and infrastructure and those type of things?
Absolutely. It's one of those things. I'm not making much. I am hoping we're going to break even on the pigs this year. Yeah. Again, it's all a learning curve and trying to figure it all out. But yeah, I'm definitely trying to catch up on the livestock side, make it somewhat even. But luckily, my wife is a full-time nurse, so that makes things a little bit easier.
Absolutely. That's what I always say. Behind a successful startup farmer is a wife who has a nursing degree.
It makes me laugh every time you say it.
Yeah.
I look at her and I go, "You are so lucky to have such a good participation trophy husband." And she does not find it funny every time.
Right. That's something you say, and I got to say, God bless you for going sober. But I would think, I mean, you're going against the norm there. Usually people get into farming and that's when they start drinking.
Oh, there have been some times that I have been like, whew, I have made some bad decisions.
Right. Is that moment of clarity they talk about when you're like, ooh.
Yeah. Wow. I made a mistake. Yeah, no, it's not too bad.
So tell me a little bit, before we get back into the processing discussion, tell me a little bit about your pigs this year, what you started with. Is it kind of, you went with what you could find, or kind of what did you end up with, and what really excited you about it that you want to kind of go whole hog next year? Pardon the pun.
No, I use that pun daily. Yeah. So I am now full-time on farm, between the farm and the process facility. So basically when I made that decision, it was during when gas prices were starting to get high, and I was spending $300-400 a week in gas just to get to work. And I was like, we can't do this anymore. And I told my wife, I was like, if we're going full-time on the shop, we're going full-time on the farm, because it doesn't make sense to not. Like, if we're going to do it, let's do it. So we cleared a bunch of, there was some trees and stuff coming up. We cleared a bunch of land there. Luckily for this area, we had a massive cedar tree growing at the edge of our driveway. So I was luckily able to recycle a lot of that for the pig pasture.
Nice.
If you can call it a pasture right now. It's probably about 1.5 acres to close to 2 in an L-shaped pattern, broken up into 3 different paddocks. And we, off a recommendation from another local farm who we're working with, we got Herefords. I reached out to them and got some really nice Herefords that could be registered. We just didn't. And my plan was in the beginning to be like, this is going to be my starter year. The closest I've been to pigs is when they're coming in the chute, and then all of a sudden I don't really have to worry about how pigs act, right, kind of thing. Yeah. So I was like, all right, this is going to be my learning year. And then all of a sudden everyone heard I was raising pigs and they're like, we'll buy pigs. And then the Facebook Marketplace pigs came in, and that is the last time I'm doing that.
Right.
So we ended up, we started out with 5, and very quickly we had 9. So we had the 5 Herefords, we had 3 Yorkshires, and a mixed breed. And it was one of those things where it's like, all right, let's figure this out. And unfortunately, my plan was to keep them all together the entire time and rotate them through the 3 pastures. But unfortunately, the Yorkshires were already about 4 months old when I bought them, and the Herefords were only about 8 weeks. So the size difference was not good, and I did not feel comfortable having them in all together. And so the rotation didn't really happen. It just ended up kind of being, I had 2 separate paddocks of pigs, and we're dealing with it until they started breaking through. And I was like, all right, I guess you're together then.
Yeah, that's right. Reach that point. Yep.
I guess that's how that works.
Yep.
But we definitely went into it in the mindset of, we are commercially doing this. I know a lot of people on here, it kind of starts as, well, we're just going to see how pigs are. And, oh, actually, there's a market for this. We fully intended right off the bat. It's like, we are going to work this as we can and try to be profitable with it.
Yeah.
I have friends come over and look at my paddock, because I had 2 other friends that were getting pigs at the same time, and they'd come over and look at mine and go, this isn't a first timer setup, right? I'm like, I know. That's because we're keeping this for a long time.
Right.
I made myself 2 promises when I started farming. It was no dairy, and I'm not chasing anything. So
Right.
when I make it, it's going Fort Knox or it's nothing. That's
Exactly.
kind of my philosophy on it.
Yep. Build it once. I like it.
Exactly.
So are all 9 now, have all 9 been dispatched and retired, and you're pig free at this point? Are you overwintering any?
The 3 Yorkshires and the mixed breed, they went in last month. I was very happy with how those came out. They look fantastic. And I mean, I've cut up probably, I can't even put a number on how many pigs I've cut up. And I was very impressed, not to blow smoke up myself, but I was like, all right, I think I can do this. So we still have the 5 Herefords. 3 are going into the cooler middle of next month, and we're keeping over 2 sows.
Okay.
So it's always that discussion of whether or not it's cheaper to buy feeders or keep sows, or keep gilts over. And it was honestly one of those things we were paying everywhere around here. I don't know what the cost was down there. Everywhere around here was, I think the lowest was $150 for feeders, and I do not plan on paying for that again.
yeah, that's a little on the high side, in my experience down here in our neck of the woods. But interesting. So you've got 2 gilts you're holding over, and I guess you just plan on maybe AI in them, or you got somebody local that's got a boar that's going to have a date night type of thing, or?
Yeah, we are actually working with a farm out of Alton, New Hampshire, Armstrong Acres, who you should absolutely connect with him because they're fantastic. They specialize in mangas and Ossabaw Island hogs.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So we are going to be stealing his Ossabaw boar for about a month, and me and Carlisle are working together, and it's one of those things. We're playing Dr. Moreau here a little bit because I'm really going for meat quality. I'm not as worried about size. But we're looking to try and come up with something really cool that, if it works out, we're probably going to try to do some selective breeding and try and kind of push that line down the line.
Yeah.
So
you're looking at taking the Ossabaw and crossing it with the Herefords right now?
Yeah, because I love the Herefords. They're super friendly. They're built like bulldogs.
Yeah.
And they're just real hardy animals. And you got the Ossabaws where they're super weather tolerant. The food transfer is out of this world. I forget what he's up to in pigs, and we're close with how much feed we're feeding out. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. So I'm hoping to breed some of that in, and honestly, meat quality. When it at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, I'm a butcher first, and I always will be. Yeah. So I'm a sucker for just real good quality cuts and carcasses. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at with that. I think every single person I talk to is like, "Oh, you're going to be raising those things for whatever," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm hoping that that cross will cut the time down, because Ossabaws, they're probably about a 16-month
right
turnover. So if I can get them down to 9 or 10, I'll be happy. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be really interesting, and I appreciate your approach to that, being a butcher first and saying, hey, I'm looking for carcass quality, because it'd be different if it was just raising meat for yourself, but this is livelihood. So when you look at
Right.
I need to be niche, I need to be profitable, and I need to have a great product. Then I appreciate that philosophy to say, I'm going to take that challenge of a longer grow out time in exchange for being able to produce some quality carcasses in the process. Okay.
And I just have just the new experience of raising the Yorkshires we raised out. They were fantastic. They were super nice. But I mean, I think Big Mama, the biggest guilt we had, she dressed out at 273.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky that the person who was buying her wanted a lot of pork.
Right,
and I was
exactly.
Perfect, fantastic. But I would almost rather have something with a slightly lower carcass rate that eats a little less and gains a little more and raise more of them.
Yeah.
It's that gamble that you're taking of, how are we going to do this? Because you could all of a sudden pump through a bunch of Yorkshires every year. And again, there's nothing wrong with the breed. They have great meat. I've been cutting them for absolute years, and I don't really think I've seen one that's been bad. Actually, I do take that back, and we're not going to bring it up.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to try something special, and we're going to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Make sure my wife doesn't kill me before the end of it.
Very good. Cool, man. That sounds good. That sounds like a good plan, and it sounds like you've that first year was a good experiment and good results there, and it's giving you information to move forward on. I like that. So let's talk about the process. I want to come back around to starting the processing facility, and I'm not going to ask you for blueprints on how you got everything going here, but there are some questions because I find this extremely intriguing. So first of all, New Hampshire is it a state inspected state, or is it not state inspected? You've got either customs and USDA, or do you have the state in the middle?
We just have custom and USDA.
Okay.
So we don't have state inspection, which I wish we did.
Yeah.
And it's getting tough up here right now. I think we're down to 3. I'm going to call it 3 USDA facilities. 1 burned down last year. 1 is teetering. I'm not going to speak ill of anyone.
Right.
It's iffy.
Yeah.
But there are 2 very good facilities. 1 I worked at for 4 years. I can probably count on one hand the amount of reputable custom facilities in the state. It's a low market for sure.
Sure. Right. Yeah. That which makes it tricky. Obviously, not having state inspection. Of course, New Hampshire's a small state. I can see where there'd be some rationale behind that, but still, it would give more options. So obviously, you're a custom facility, and I don't think we need to get into why you're not USDA because of all the expense and all the hassle that goes along with that, and just the size, the scale you'd have to be to justify that expense. But
Absolutely.
So let's talk about custom a little bit. So obviously that means you can only sell wholes and halves, and technically, since you're raising your own animals, you're technically selling the animal to the individual, and they're obviously you're putting the processor hat on, and they're paying you to process it on their behalf. If I remember the syntax of how all we're supposed to discuss that when we utilize custom processors. So,
exactly, it's 2 separate receipts.
Yeah,
so
right.
that's how I explain it. You can give me a pile of money, but at the end of the day, these are 2 separate receipts that you were leaving here with, and that is how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would think like any business that involves the manufacture or the development of a product, then there's probably equipment that, okay, here's the bare bones that I need to get started. And then of course, here's the stuff that, that's like a pin up on the wall that at some point I'm buying that. I'm getting that because that's going to make my life much easier. What did you run into? I know you said you kind of acquired equipment as you're going, but what were like the absolute bare minimums? You said, I got to have these things to get this thing off the ground.
The biggest things, and they actually all came at once. I worked for, like I said, that gourmet butcher shop for a while. I ended up managing 3 different locations for them. And after I had left, I was still friends with the manager, and they were shutting down one of the locations. And he goes, "Hey, are you still planning on starting your shop?" I'm like, "I was hoping to." And he goes, "Well, good, bring a trailer because I've got a deal for you. I have a lot of quote unquote broken equipment."
Wow.
And we ended up with a Hobart 250-pound capacity grinder. I actually ended up with the bandsaw that I learned how to cut on a bandsaw with. We ended up getting that.
Wow.
Multiple cut benches, freezers, a laundry list of stuff, deli slicer, and I think if I remember correctly, it was about $1,400.
Oh my goodness!
Because of it being broken, kind of one of those situations under the table. Kind of, thanks, buddy.
Wow, that's like a shop. That's like a shop in a box.
We got very lucky. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So I definitely went into it with, I need a high capacity grinder, bandsaw, benches. After that, the biggest thing is a walk-in.
Yeah.
And we ran a CoolBot for a while, probably about 2 years. We ran a CoolBot. And it had its challenges. I understand the good things about the CoolBot and the bad things. We were going through about an AC a year.
Wow.
Just with how much we were running it and this, that, and the other. And when you look at the maintenance fees and everything for an actual compression, like a compressor system, it almost works out. But we were still running the CoolBot when I decided to go full time here at the farm. And in the middle of summer, the AC gave out and I had to cancel a bunch of appointments.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of those things where it was like, all right, we got to pull the trigger on this. And we ended up installing a full condenser system. And it is amazing. I wish we had done it from the very beginning. It has absolutely changed my entire business.
Wow.
For sure. I'm able to hold over a lot more. I'm able to take in more business because I'm not worried about an AC given out in the middle of the night kind of thing. Like, I'm able to have a lot more security with my customers and their products because of it.
Yeah. That's great.
It's hands down the linchpin of the entire business. If I didn't have the walk-in, I wouldn't be in business.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, that's incredible. So that's, goodness, it sounds like Providence to be able to get all that equipment for $1,400 and then be able to move over into that full setup with the compressor system and the full walk-in. Talk about hitting the ground running. Good stuff there.
I don't do anything. We're gonna dip our toe. I dive right head first. I don't know how many butchers you've met. We're all kind of cut from the same cloth, and we're all a little nuts.
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee your butcher at some point in his life had a nicotine and caffeine addiction, if he doesn't still.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's just kind of that, like, cool, we're just off and running.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's one thing that always, it's just always in the back of my mind, and I'm going to ask you this, and it's kind of a little off track, but it's something, especially with a custom shop, and the fact that you're not state inspected, not USDA, so there's not much else you can do. But so what do you do when somebody says, "Hey, I want a whole pig from you," and so you're like, "Okay, do you want all of these things? Do you want the organ meat? Do you want the offal? Do you want the lard? Do you want the trotters? Do you want jowl of the head? All that type of stuff. And in our experience down here, a lot of people are like, well, I'm not quite sure what to do with all that, so I'll pass. So what do you do in that situation where you've got a lot of things that people don't accept? Does that just end up in your personal freezer? Does it just go on the discard pile? Now, obviously, you can't individually sell those things. So how do you navigate that?
It depends on what it is. We'll keep, if customers don't want organs, we'll keep organs. I like organ meat, and then we got a gaggle of dogs here, so it doesn't go to waste. And things like trotters, stuff like that, it's not a big market up here. So a lot of that just kind of goes into the discard pile. Mm-hmm. We're not in the process. It is going. We have a composting system that we're working on and trying to perfect and get that working. So basically I take all of the offal and everything that's left, and basically we have a large pit in the back corner of our property that I just mix in with wood chips. It gets turned every time I'm out there. And it's for a while before I was legit and kind of running under the radar, it was kind of just dig a hole, bury it kind of thing. Gotcha. And I started doing this compost, and honestly, my waste has gone down significantly. Yeah. Mixed with the mixture of the wood chips, and we do a lot of beef. I average probably 1 to 2 cows a week. And with it being a large ruminant, that stomach is just full of grass and all that acid, and it really more than I thought it would, really just boosted that compost to the extreme. Interesting. Yeah. So it's been working out really well there. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where for the longest time, I've been having to explain cut sheets anyway, just because of having the facility. So it's fairly easy for me to sit down with someone and really break it down, what this is, what that is. And I blatantly tell everyone, I'm like, I can do whatever you want, but what do you eat? If it's just you and your wife and you like this, then get that. And don't worry about this. Like, you don't need, like, if you're not going to have picnic roasts, put it in the sausage. You can make pasta sauce. You can do whatever you need to do. So there really isn't much left over. I definitely try to work in everything I can out of that animal to my customers in any way I can. Yeah. And I'll try to talk them into something new. I've printed out recipes before. I've sent links, just kind of like, hey, try something new. Like, you don't have to, but I promise you this is going to be delicious. Right. So why don't you give this a try? I'll just do one on one side and grind the rest, or do whatever else. But I definitely, it's what I enjoy most out of having my own facility now, because I work completely solo. I do everything from the bullet to pulling it out of the freezer for you. So I thoroughly enjoy sitting and talking with the customer. I absolutely tell every one of my customers, you are welcome to stay. You're welcome to see the process. You're welcome to help. Like, I am more than happy to answer every single question that you have about it, because I'm probably, at least in the US, maybe 1%, maybe less than 1% that does this on the level that I do. And I sometimes take it for granted that it's like, other people don't know this. And especially if you're raising your own animals, I highly suggest you go out and either do it yourself at least once, or watch someone do it who's at a skill level to where it takes 45 minutes to get a cow from the corral into the cooler. Like, wow. Because it's something to watch. To watch a cow go from a cow to beef.
Indeed, yeah.
Or like a pig to pork. Like, something where it's, oh, okay, something happened there.
Yeah. Just it's not a magical process where it goes in one room and comes out the other without any human interaction. Yeah.
Exactly. No, there is an aggressive amount of human interaction involved in that.
So what about value added services? Where do you find yourself on that? So obviously with beef, you get it hanging, then you cut it up, you grind it, you cut the steaks, all those type of things. With pork, obviously you've got an opportunity for additional value adds. So smoking and curing, the bacon, the hams, the jowls, all those type of things. And then of course, stuffing and brats and all those type of things. So what gives you an absolute headache, or what's like, man, I can value add this at some point, or I'm already doing that and it's really going to help me with my bottom line?
Yeah. So we have a smokehouse. My wife's uncle built us a smokehouse, and I actually just yesterday ended up putting it on a trailer so I can actually move it around my property a little bit easier. And I also can't get taxed on having something that's on a trailer. But we're looking into smoking. All of my customers this year, I am giving the option of, I will smoke your bellies for free as long as I've never cold smoked before. So you're going to get bacon, but I don't know how good it's going to be. I promise it's going to be decent, but I'm not going to tell you it's going to be the best bacon you've ever had. And it's one of those things where I was really, really full bore into like, we're going to do our own bacon, we're going to do our own hams. And the hard part is when it comes back to it, I'm still a butcher first. And at the time being, the shop is what is bringing in more of a profit than the wholes and halves. Yeah. So it's one of those things. I have contacts to multiple different smokehouses around the state. I have multiple pamphlets printed out of recipes, how-to guides, stuff like that. I would absolutely love, because I am a full proponent of the more you know, the more you work kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I want to learn it all. Yeah. I want to learn every single process that there is involved with an animal. Like, absolutely, because I want to be able to do it all. I want to be able to tan hides, do bacon, do all of it. But at the time being where I am still solo working, doing everything, I just don't have the time to designate to, all right, so while I'm cutting up these 6 deer, I'm also going to be regulating the smokehouse temperature and making sure I don't overcook these bacon and this, that, and the other. So we're gonna venture into it. I'm definitely gonna be learning how to do bacon and hams. I just don't know if at the moment is going to be a value added. Sausage at the moment is kind of the same beast. Mm-hmm. I basically right now just do sweet and hot Italian just to make my life easy. I have made an ungodly amount of link sausage in my career. Right. An ungodly amount. And I can do it with my eyes closed, and it's one of those things where, again, I could do it with my eyes closed, but if you're doing link sausage and you're doing it right, it's at a bare minimum a 2-day process.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't have 2 days. I don't have 2 days to rub together. So, at some point, we will be doing link sausage, and I will be expanding that. I will do bratwurst. I will do summer sausage. I will do things along those lines. But right now, my bread and butter is getting as many people through the shop as I possibly can.
Sure.
Along with being a stay-at-home dad the other half of the time. Yeah. So it's juggling a lot, and we're trying to keep it as bare minimum and get that as good as possible. Like, get it to the point where everyone knows what we're doing and the level that we're doing it. And after that, expanding from there. Yeah. And really starting to blow people's minds and be like, oh, okay, this is something different. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm looking at it.
Oh yeah. And I think there's tons of wisdom in that, man. Perfect your systems, work out all the kinks, get it to where, like you said, you could do this entire process blindfolded And then when you've got that nailed down, then look at these expansion opportunities. Because I agree. The sausage stuffing, all that value added, you can charge for it, but it comes down to time. And you can't charge for something you don't have. So if you don't have any more time, then it's kind of tough to justify that. And you don't want to get the burnout where you're out there at 3 a.m. stuffing sausage because you've committed to that process, and you discover you're upside down when it comes to time.
And that's the biggest thing. I mean, my boss at the time at the USDA facility goes, if you're going to do link sausage, put a charge on it, and put it at a charge that people don't want to buy it.
Exactly.
But guess what? People still want to buy it. It does not matter.
Yep.
Last year I was still doing link sausage, and I had a customer come through with a black bear, and that bear was just under 200 pounds. And I was going through the cut sheet with him, and he goes, "Do you do sausage?" And I go, "Yep. I do sweet and hot." And he goes, "Do you do links?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, perfect." And I go, "So what do you want for cuts?" And he goes, "Oh, no, I don't want cuts." And he got the entire 200-pound bear.
Stuff an entire bear.
And I was like, it was such a double-edged sword of like, oh, God, this is not going to be fun.
Yeah.
And then the other side on my shoulder was just going, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Exactly. This is going to be the most expensive bear in New Hampshire.
That was some good sausage, though. He gave me a pack. I was like, all right, I did all right with that one.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. Very cool. Well, all right. Well, Kyle, I want to be sensitive to your time. But I do want to ask you. So what do you think? What's the next 5 years look like for the ranch and the processing shop? I don't know if I mentioned the name at the beginning, but you guys, his processing shop is called the Body Shop, which I think is hilarious. So what's the next 5 years look like? What are you thinking?
Honestly, I'm kind of going day by day at the moment. We have a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old who currently isn't sleeping. So I'm just trying to get to tomorrow on most days. But mainly our goal right now is we're in the process at the shop. I'll start at the shop first. We're in the process right now of getting essentially a slaughter floor set up on the back side of the building. I've got multiple garage doors around, and on the back side there's a garage door. We're getting a concrete pad poured with a engine crane, so I can do everything I need to do there. Right now I'm doing everything off the front of my Massey Ferguson, which it works. And at the time when it was onesies, twosies, it was like, oh, this is fine. And now that I'm hanging out under that bucket a lot more, I'm like, yeah, I don't like this as much as I used to.
Right, exactly.
So we're
you got to trust those Massey hydraulics too.
Exactly. So that was an easy sell to get my wife on board to sign that check. Yeah. But yeah, we're essentially doing that. And my main goal, like I said before with the shop, is just kind of to get to the point where we're running as smooth as we possibly can. And I would honestly love to find someone local, like someone in their late teens, early 20s who just wants to learn something and figure something out and is super serious about it. And kind of take them under my wing and apprentice them, because to find anyone to work right now is absolutely impossible. And for me, I would rather work my fingers to the bone than try and half train someone who's going to end up leaving in 6 months.
Yeah.
So our main goal is to find at least one person to come on, part or full time, and just kind of be able to build up the clientele and kind of just expand a little bit. In the end, I really don't want to expand too much. My main goal would be to really do the majority of our processing and have that take up quite a bit of my schedule to get a routine of where I'm really pushing stuff out the door from my field.
Right. Yeah.
And really try and capitalize on that. But yeah, so with that, it's just kind of chug along and try to survive. That's where we're going with that.
Yeah.
With the pigs and the cows and the rest of the farm, we're definitely going to be diving head first next year. I am unfortunately more than likely doing birds next year. Double back on that last conversation. Right. But our main goal is we're going to be cordoning off a good chunk of the cow pasture that was all of those saplings that were there. We're going to be woven wiring all of that and breaking that up into multiple different paddocks. And I'm going to be rotating my pigs through that. I'll more than likely be putting chickens behind them and overseeding behind them. And basically just from there, really just work outwards. We're expanding the cow pastures, probably another 3 acres next year. And basically my plan is just to get to a point where I'm moving pigs behind cows and poultry behind pigs and really just kind of bring these fields back. We've been, the first year of hay that we got was not great. It was not good at all. It was cut late, and even if it wasn't cut late, it just was not good quality hay. We ended up losing a calf because of it. And it's starting to come back. But my main goal is basically to get to a point where I can get a really, really, really good first cut off of our property and then just start moving animals across it. And every year just kind of build up that soil, build up that seed bank, and build up that carbon that's in there. And really just get to a point where we're getting, I think this year we got about 130 bales off of 9.5 acres.
Wow.
I'm hoping to bump that up to about 300 plus.
Yeah.
That's my main goal with that.
And
definitely introducing some seed that's better protein and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a great metric to be able to measure. You can just, you see what kind of production you get as the years go along, as your bale number increases.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, man. Well, that sounds exciting. And goodness, there's a lot of things I'd like to circle back around with you on, and after next season, and kind of do a follow up and see how stuff's going. And my goodness, if I was in New Hampshire anytime, I definitely would want to come over and check out your shop as well.
You are absolutely welcome anytime. That
would be awesome. Yeah, the boys were just talking today about they were saying we want to go back to New England soon. So I thought, well, we may maybe do a road trip again. So.
Well, you let me know, and we'll take care of you. You got.
That's right. That's right. Go hang out with the butcher. You'll never starve, right?
Exactly. I can promise you that. You're going to be tired because you're working, but you will never starve. I promise.
Oh man, yeah. I don't mind getting my hands dirty at all. I'd love to learn some more skills with the knife for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, Kyle. Well, I'm going to let you go, man. If do you have anything on social media or the internet? Can people find you out there on the webs somehow?
All of my sites are just on Facebook. Okay. The shop's website is The Body Shop, Custom Butchering, and Euro Taxidermy. And the ranch is, I think the quick link to that is at The Ranch PB.
Yeah.
So you can just search that on Facebook, and you'll find us right there. So
good deal. Yeah, I didn't even talk to you.
See my ugly mug on there. So
yeah, I didn't even talk to you about your taxidermy stuff. That obviously that's a little off topic, but personally, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about that. That's neat. The Euros, I saw. I don't know if it's a new trend or has been around forever, but I saw somebody did a Euro mount that was completely blacked out, and I thought that's pretty slick looking.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing it. That's taken a back seat for sure.
Yeah.
I've gotten way too busy to watch water boil.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I love it, but
I hear you. Yeah. You gotta pick your battles.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you go. It was great talking with you, and I pray you have a great rest of the week.
Absolutely great talking to you, Troy.
All right, take care. All right, well, I really appreciate Kyle coming on the show, and I got to say, he reached out to me earlier, just here in the last week, and invited me to come up to, next time I'm up in New Hampshire, to come check his place out, and we may even, if we schedule it in time or give it enough lead time, may be able to to put a pig or two on a hook. So I thought that would be interesting. That'd be some really good video fodder as well. So always looking for any excuse to head to New England. I love it up there, especially in the summertime. All right, well, as I always say, if there's anyone that wants to be on the podcast or a specific topic you'd like us to take on, by all means, let us know and we can check it out. Don't forget our Patreon. We've got some additional elements we've put out there with the some of the small focus groups that we're doing, different tier discussions, those type of things. And we've got another one of those coming up. So if you want to be a part of that, just support us. You could support us at the basic level, the $5 level, and you can be you can partake in, oh my goodness, you could participate in that discussion when we have it coming up next month. Well, again, appreciate everybody listening. I pray everyone have a great week. Y'all take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.